morning, everyone. Thank you. Thank you very much. Good morning. Good, that's good to hear. Good morning. Great to hear everyone so excited for this panel. And I'm very happy to see almost everyone showing up today. And this morning, it's my honor and pleasure to moderate this very important session on enlightened leadership. I'd like to call it transformational leadership beyond enlightenment. And as you know, when it comes to digital leadership, it's always very important that we have very good enlightened and transformational leadership. Now, we have seen, and you have seen across the board, how a very good transformative leader around digital transformation can really make big leaps, big changes. But at the same time, we also have seen how weaknesses in digital leadership can create fragmentation, weak coordination, and maybe lack of direction, even in our digital transformation journeys. For the United Nations Development Program, digital leadership is one very important component of our digital transformation framework, beyond looking at regulations, beyond looking at technologies, beyond looking at digital infrastructure. We see and know and believe that digital leadership is really critical to advancing all our digital transformation journeys. And today, we'll be joined in this panel by senior leaders who represent three very distinct and very diverse digital economies, but all committed to ensuring digital societies and advancing them in their own respective context. And in the next hour or so, we're going to discuss some of their digital successes, but focus not so much on the digitalization initiatives, but on the role of leaders and the role of leadership at all levels in creating those successes. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our three panelists today. Ms. Nuria Kutnaeva, the Minister for Digital Development in Kyrgyz Republic. Ms. Paula Bogantes Zamora, Minister of Science, Innovation, Technology, and Telecommunications from Costa Rica. And E.J. Saunders, a former Deputy Premier and Minister of Finance, Investment, and Trade at the Turks and Caicos Islands. Thank you. In this room, we have all of you are leaders, and many of you are with the government as well. So this session, I'm sure, will resonate with many of you. And if you have any questions, any feedback, any thoughts on the topics that we're going to be discussing, please feel free to share them in the Workshop platform. They will be fed to us, and we'll ask those questions during the course of the session. But thank you very much, Paula, EJ, Nuria, for joining this panel, and good morning again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let me ask you the first question about inspirations and challenges, because all three of you and all of you are also dealing with so many different challenges, dynamics, complexities with regard to digital transformation. In your cases, what inspires, but at the same time challenges you as senior leaders in the government on digital transformation? Maybe I'll start from the far end. Paula.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. So we're going to start with the positive. What inspires me from a government point of view, how can we be smarter? How can we make wiser decisions that impact citizens? And technology comes into play a huge role here. Technology can provide governments updated data that we then will use for public policy. So that is an inspiration. What challenged us, and I think we're going to talk about this during this talk, is the resistance to change. It's perhaps one of the biggest challenges that I have encountered. How can we convince public employees that what we're bringing in, the new technology that we're putting on the table, will make things better, easier, et cetera?
No, thank you. No, that challenge, I think, is very important because, as you know, they said that starting from COVID, the world leaped decades ahead into digital transformation. So how are we coping with that big jump with regard to the practices, solutions, and behaviors around digital transformation? So thanks for sharing that. EJ.
Thank you. What inspires me, I see technology as a tool, and so it's a tool to achieve an end. As a politician, I wake up every morning wanting my people to live their best lives. And that's the most important thing to me, is to ensure that the short time that I have in government, that I'm able to make enough change for my people to live a high quality of life. And so I use technology, hopefully, to be able to make it easier for the government to deliver for the people of the Turks and Caicos Islands. And so that's what inspires me, that while I'm there, I'm able to do these things that to make their lives significantly better. Make today better than yesterday, make tomorrow better than today. The challenge, though, is choosing the right tools to do that in terms of the technology tools and getting them to understand it, being able to articulate that vision to bring them along. Otherwise, there's always going to be resistance. Why do I have to do things differently? And so for me, the challenge is articulating that and getting to change the culture for them to be able to follow me on that journey in terms of making their lives better.
Thank you. And waking up every day with new ideas is something that's also challenging, right?
Yes.
But it's very positive, not to think about what can I do differently today, but then how do we bring others into that journey? I think that's part of the inspiration we need to create as leaders too. Nuria?
Yes. What inspires me is, listen, we are living here on Earth, I don't know, for 60, for 80 years. I'm about 47 years old, and I know that more, maybe 20 years to come too. And I want to use these 20 years, 20, 30 years, in order to serve my people of Kyrgyzstan. And as many of us already know, that digitalization is not the end. It is only the tool to make the lives of our people better. But it's also the tool of anti-corruption. It's also the tool to promote better lives to our citizens. And when you go to different centers, different public agencies, it is our goal to make people lives simpler and better. But also, this is on the very first niveau level. But also, if we make digital public services more simpler and better, then it gives also to our bureaucracy, to our public agencies, much more time to give their best in their work. And it also gives our people, our decision makers, more time to think about more strategic things. This is what digitalization makes.
Thank you. I think there's a lot that's very similar to your three responses about responding to the needs of the people. And part of the challenge we're also seeing is that in many cases, there's a very strong emphasis on tech and digital, but not so much on the impact that they're having on the people. So that's a conversation perhaps that we can have as well during the session. But Nuria, what you mentioned is a very good segue to my question, to my next question, and maybe I can start this with you. We know that digital technologies are very dynamic, very fast, a very fast-moving industry. And sometimes, or in many cases, the tech and the business sector is quite far ahead of the public sector and the government. What do you think should be the role of the government and public institutions in advancing digital solutions that are people-centered and respond to the needs of the industry at the same time?
Thank you, Bob, for your question. I would like to answer, what is digitalization for you? Because, you know, when people say sometimes that digitalization is making the PDF document, this is digitalization. Sometimes people say that making fiber optic is also digitalization, and vice versa. But, you know, there are different maturity index, digital transformation maturity index. Mm-hmm. And when you talk about maturity index, you used to think about different indicators. For example, e-solutions, e-platforms, interoperability data exchange platforms, fiber optic, digital skills. This is all about digitalization. But last but not least, and I would say maybe one of the most important, is political support. And when you say about political support, it's firstly about how people who are on decision makers, how do they understand? And we are very lucky that our president supports digitalization, and also the leader of our cabinet of ministers, Mr. Akılbek Japarov, also supports digitalization. And this is what I call a very good sign. This is the leadership who understands the digitalization and supports and promotes. This is to one thing. The other thing is, in our ministries, we have deputies, special deputies on digitalization, and they understand it and digitalization. And in order to promote it further, we make also trainings for deputy ministers so that they promote digitalization in their public agencies as well. Then I should also say about 3 levels, and of course all of you know about these levels. G2C, center to state institutions to citizens, what we are making. We made the mobile application, which is called Tunduk. Mobile application is now downloaded the Kyrgyzstan's population is about 7 to 8 million people, and this mobile application has been downloaded last year about 2 million times, which means that this is very, very popular in our country. In this mobile application, we have digital documents, about 8 of them, and it is, what is very important, it is legally binding, which means that you can give, you can go with these digital documents in notary offices, in banks, you can go even to flights, and you can show these digital documents, and everybody knows. This is only one step. We have digital identity, and it can go by, you can take it and receive it by via Face ID. So every day, every month by month, people are getting digital skills by using this mobile application. If you go then the next level, this is state to business. We have a park of high technology park, which has many residents, legal entities, and they have only 1% of taxes, and year by year they're growing exponentially. If you take also the next, so one more step, we are giving APIs of all digital documents to our businesses, like cell phone companies and banks, and they're using our APIs, public services, in their own mobile applications. So, and this is also, I think, a good step. And the next, one more level is about state to state authorities, state public agencies, what is made. We are making also the document flow, everything electronically, and if, for example, a person is giving the address, it goes through his mobile application and goes directly to my computer as a minister, and I have to sign, like every day, many addresses of citizens. And this is what, like really the circle, from mobile application of citizens to the computer of the ministry, and then we have to deal with all addresses of citizens. Here I can stop, and then if you have questions, I will.
Yeah, thank you, Nuria. No, that shows a very engaged leadership. In that case, and a very strong partnership and cooperation with different stakeholders at different levels. Yeah, that's very good to hear. Paula, what do you think about this? No, we discussed earlier also about cybersecurity and how we deal with these issues, and how in many cases the hackers and attackers are a lot smarter, no, than what we have in our response. What do you think should be the role of the government in advancing these solutions in tandem with or at pace with the business industry?
That's a very good question. So I'll use cybersecurity as an example. Costa Rica suffered a huge cyber attack in 2022. We are a country with no army, so never in our wildest dream did we ever think that we were going to be attacked, because we're no military threat to anyone. That taught us a huge lesson. I think Estonia went through the same in 2007. And the lesson is that either we get ready for, prepare ourselves, defend, or get ready for a defense of another cyber attack in the future, or we're gonna be another victim and it's gonna cost us a lot of money, and it's gonna cost citizens the interruption of services, et cetera. And that's technology, right? We have to get on with technology. Today is cybersecurity, tomorrow is AI, and in the future, quantum computing, whatever that may be. The other thing that we realized is that it is not us, the government, who is leading the innovation in technology. It's the private industry. So it will be foolish for us to pretend to do it all on our own. We have to get together with the private industry. We have to sit down with them and have them teach us what's the newest invention on cyber defense, using the same example.
Right.
So that's what we're doing. We're lucky enough that we have in Costa Rica the operations of many multinationals that are leading these technologies, and it is of their biggest interest to engage with us. Why? Because we are one of their biggest customers, governments are.
Right.
So again, there's a synergy right there that we have to maximize for both benefit. And at the end of the day, citizens have to be informed of everything that we're doing. Right. So again, that's the stool with the three legs, if you will.
Yeah, thank you, Paula. I think that very strategic partnership with the tech industry is really critical in all aspects of our digital transformation journeys. EJ, you're an IT professional. What do you think about keeping pace, government keeping pace with the tech industry?
Well, being a minister with an IT background, I wanted government to be leading it and not catching up. But in practical sense, it's hard to keep up with the private sector. But I think the role of government is to ensure that the companies and the investors that are making the investments in technology, that they're able to do that with the least friction as possible. You don't want to make it difficult for companies to be able to innovate in your country. You want to make it easier for those companies to innovate. But you want to ensure, though, that they're doing it in the public good. You don't want them to just doing it for all commercial reasons. These are for-profit corporations, so sometimes they may be out there putting into the public domain technology that's not ready for the public, that hasn't been managed properly to ensure the public good. So you're, as a minister, you actually have to, or as a government, you actually have to balance that. You want to encourage innovation, but you want to make sure that when it's released to the public, that it's ready for the public. It's not doing more harm than good. And so, so that's what it is for me, is to ensure that government doesn't fall too far behind, that we're always neck and neck with the private sector, that we spur innovation that's in the public good, so in the technology. And I think there's a term that they used to use maybe last year, technology for good. And that's the thing, as a government, you want to push to know that it's always in the best interest of your country and your people.
Thank you. Now, technology and digital for public good, that's something that we are all trying to make sure is the slogan and the motto by which we're advancing digital transformation. Can I have a show of hands? Who among you feel that the business industry is way advanced for your respective public sector institutions to deal with? Can you raise your hand if you feel the governments or public sector is a little bit behind the tech industry? Okay, that's a lot, which means we need to do a lot more, right, in terms of keeping pace with the industry. Thank you. Keeping pace with the industry is also related to how sometimes the young population are a bit more attuned to the pace of the industry. We have seen that in many of our countries, around the world, the youth below 17 years old is called the smartphone generation. They are the ones who grew up with the smartphone since it was invented about 17 years ago. And many of them are now fiddling with this ubiquitous technology from 2, even 1 year old, unfortunately, sometimes. Paula, in Costa Rica, you have a significant youth population as well. And we know that in all of our countries too, including in Costa Rica, in Turks and Caicos, and Kyrgyzstan, young men and women are greatly involved in advancing the digital agenda, are very big consumers now of digital technology. And also, at the same time, we also realize that perhaps a bigger part of the youth population, particularly in developing countries, remain very much left behind. Yesterday, one of the panels, one of the speakers was talking about nearly 1 billion people without IDs, and 500 million people without digital IDs. And we are seeing that even in many cases, in many countries where young men and women have access to smartphones, these are not necessarily used for productivity, but more for interaction, for social media, and communications, but not really using the entire power of technology or the benefits of it. How do you think, Paula, can leadership in the public sector play a role in enhancing digital equalities and bridging many of these divides? And maybe you can share with us how Costa Rica addressed these challenges too.
So Costa Rica has done a very good job at bringing electricity to the country. 99%, almost 99% of the country has electricity. That is phase 1 to then put telecom on top of that. We have 151 penetration of mobile connectivity. So Costa Rica, every Costa Rican has a mobile phone. Some of them have more than one device. So what does that tell us? That we have a way of communicating with Costa Ricans, with most of the population. Communication is key. When we're putting together these digital initiatives, we always have to think of how can we communicate the population, the citizens, as to what are we trying to do and what's going to be their benefit. At the end of the day, we're doing everything for their service, to benefit them, to bring services to them. So that's number one point. I'm not that concerned about the youth. We have rural areas, and that's where the biggest challenge is. And what we've seen is that when we put out together these training sessions, of whichever topic that may be, we always get the young people to come and register. It is the elderly, the senior citizens, the ones that we're more concerned, because they're the ones that didn't grow up with technology. And there's the resistance of, do I have to use this device? And when they use the device, it's usually just to communicate amongst family members, and that's it. So they're the ones that I'm most concerned of. We currently have a campaign to teach Costa Ricans about digital signature. And I was discussing with my colleague, we're now saying that if you want to play lottery, online lottery, you have to use your digital signature to buy online lottery. And we're getting resistance from citizens. And I'm pretty sure most of them are going to be senior citizens, not so much the young Costa Ricans. So we have to find ways to, again, teach those populations what's the benefit. We have 24 indigenous territories. 2% of Costa Rica's population is indigenous. And even there, you see the young indigenous people go into the centers that we have at their location to learn about technology. Again, it is not them that I'm the most concerned, it's the elderly citizens in the country.
Thank you, Paula. Nuria, do you get the same sense? How do you deal with this in Kyrgyzstan?
Yes, I think that I would support here your opinion about, Paula, about, well, first, you know, the notion about digital divide. And of course, this digital divide we have to fight against, but here the youth is our, we accompany the youth. First, we make all different regional forums, youth forums, in order to promote the digitalization and different tools and mobile applications, but they're our friends. Youth is our friend in digitalization, the population. We ask our youth, our young people, please show how this mobile application goes, how it works for your elderly people, for your relatives. And they like it. They are just our friends in doing this. So we go to the universities, we go to schools, and we teach how to use it. And they are our friends, our accomplices, so to say, in this, in digitalization. I also want to mention that we have a 98% of mobile penetration rate, which means that, yes, everyone has, almost everyone has a mobile. We have very remote areas in mountainous terrain where there is no mobile phones, but still we are working on it. Probably with satellites, we will cover it. At the same time, we are doing, at the moment, the digital reform in education center, and we hope that this will also help us. There is an initiative to bring about 70,000 notebooks to teachers and then to children. So this, I think, this will help, like in many ways. But also, we should talk about changing textbooks and what we are making also, changing textbooks and making them digital as well. So this is a very important thing, I think.
Thank you. Since yesterday, I have seen very prominent colleagues also here on the stage, and we have them in the room, more and more female digital transformers, let's say, who are in the forefront of advancing digital technology. At the same time, we're also seeing significant gender divide when it comes to digital in a number of countries. Is this part of the work you're doing, Nuria, also, as part of your educational system?
Yes, actually, this, we are making a big stress on promoting STEM courses. This is technology and mathematics to our education system. And I think, especially for girls, there are a lot of projects for girls, but when we talk about the girls and making stress about them, I don't want to put boys aside. So we have to think in general about our children. And this is what is very important, to make from the very beginning not only them digital, but also to be awakened from the data, personal data concern. Right. So we have to put the stress on cyber hygiene as well. So it should go hand in hand, not only make them digital, but also to learn them how to protect themselves in the internet, because, you know, at the moment there are many concerns about this in the internet era.
Yeah, no, indeed, thank you. And what you mentioned about laptops for teachers, EJ, yesterday we were discussing about the one laptop per child initiative. Could you also tell us about how Costa Rica is trying to address the youth divide and the access to technologies as well for everyone? Turks and Caicos, sorry.
Just to touch on, I mean, many years ago, around 2000, I was a part of the initiative coming out of MIT on the one laptop per child, being pushed forward by Professor Nicholas Negroponte. And the goal was to build a laptop that was cheap enough that the $100 mark was the mark that we were trying to aim for. And so at that point, we felt that with a little bit of ambition, you could get all of the poor children a laptop where they could get onto the internet and start to communicate. And the idea was that the world would be a better place if people could communicate more with each other. The internet has progressed fast since then, and so we've seen that happen. But in terms of the digital divide in the Turks and Caicos, it's probably not as bad because Turks and Caicos is a pretty affluent country, and our mobile penetration, smartphone penetration specifically, is over 100%. So we know that the devices are there. We have the mobile data that's there, so we have about 100% coverage in terms of mobile data. Where the issue is around the applications that the people are using to make sure that they're not just using it, because most of those persons with a device are only using it for communication purposes. And we want people to do more than just communicate. We want the young generation to learn, and to learn in a good way, not to pick up bad habits, not reading fake news. We want them to be creating quality content, engaging with quality content. And so the issue now that we need to be looking at is we need to be looking at how do we do that? How do we encourage the app developers and the content developers to make sure that they're producing, again, quality content? I'm an advocate for moving fast towards the AI chatbots, but making sure, because they're able to run 24/7, they're able to engage, particularly with younger kids, but again, with quality engagement, and so they don't always have to have another person on the other side. So for me, it would be around pushing the quality content, quality applications, and working with the carriers, the mobile carriers. Because one of the things that you can do, one of my previous jobs before I got into politics was the CEO of a telecommunications company. One of the things you can do is get them to load your government apps onto their handsets before it's sold. So by the time it's sold, your apps could be part of the apps that comes with the telephones. And so that's one of the things that I think governments should try to push, particularly those quality apps for kids and for senior citizens and persons who with special needs. If you have any of those things that you want to get out as fast as possible, the easiest way is to go to the carriers and say, the next batch of handsets, can you get these apps loaded on them? So when people purchase a brand new handset, it's preloaded.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I think many of us have been part of sandboxes, exploring digital solutions, in many cases, very much confined within specific target groups or partners, and in many cases also we involve so many different stakeholders as part of those explorations. I think the question in many instances is how do we move from sandboxes to policy, and how then the policy can also be infused with sufficient regulations that does not constrain innovation, but also manages many of the risks around it, similar to artificial intelligence that you mentioned, EJ. What do you think about this? Now, how can we further continue to innovate with the different stakeholders and at the same time manage many of these risks, particularly in the context of AI, where I really believe we're only seeing a very small part of it at the moment. Many, of course, of you are working already on this, but I think in terms of opportunities, benefits, and risks, we are still at this point, and it's hitting us already, and it will hit us and much bigger in the next few months, years, and maybe just the next few days. How do you think we can continue to explore, innovate, and develop solutions around this that will make sure that they're also responding to the needs of the people, but at the same time also prepares us to the future, and which, whether we like it or not, it will be there, and it'll be part of the daily lives and in the government's functions across all of the different ministries. Any thoughts around this?
I will start probably. Well, we are thinking about, yes, we have made this interoperability system. We are using different information systems, but now comes the era of AI, as you said. And how can we use AI without without any harms to people and to information systems? And what we are using now, we have bought a supercomputer last year in order to promote our Kyrgyz language, because now is the as everybody knows, there is the race of AI, and every state wants to use AI as much as possible, to some extent, of course. But we shouldn't forget about our own languages, and therefore we use AI to train and to use our Kyrgyz language and to put it into internet. And therefore we want to use AI in this respect. In the public sector sphere, we want to use AI, as you mentioned also, as the chatbots, because the person has to come to the internet, and a citizen can put for example, the question, where can I get this or that public service, and then AI can answer very, like, in the wide sense. But also when we have centers for servicing people, and we use AI also to locate what is a person doing, and is his or her actions are harmful to others. This is also the use of AI, sort of AI. So these are three spheres that we are using AI at the moment, but at the same time, what about regulation? And we have made the first digital code, and we used it already. We presented it at ESCATO, at the UN agency, and the digital code also regulates some kind of, some sphere of AI, but from the helicopter's point of view, not very specifically, but we put the frontiers of using AI in the regulatory form. For example, such kinds of deep fakes cannot be used, because deep fake is obviously also an AI form of AI. So deep fakes, for example, cannot be used. And all AI technologies should be looked through the use of the harmful use to people, to citizens. So this is what we are doing with the help of our digital code. I think that at the moment, many countries develop their own strategy of using AI. So this is how Kyrgyzstan is also promoting this regulation.
Thank you, Nuria. Paula, any thoughts on this?
So, never in the history of humanity have we ever encountered what we are encountering right now with AI. The fact that we will sooner rather than later face an entity that will be smarter than us. Mm-hmm. That is a huge challenge for humanity, right? Hopefully we'll be able to control it at all times. That's the goal. So that's number one. Therefore, that brings us into the next question. How can we contain it so it's always, or for hopefully always, will be used to humanity's benefit? And it is governments, the ones that can control that, right? And that's a mandate. And this is why it's so important for governments to sit down and have these conversations, uncomfortable conversations, with the inventors of AI, the companies that are developing AI. And it's not the governments that are developing this, it's the private industry. Mm-hmm. So this brings us back into, we cannot pretend, governments cannot pretend to move forward with technology without engaging with the private industry, especially when talking about AI.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
The other thing is the World Economic Forum indicated that false information is one of their biggest concerns. So as Nuria was saying, it's another huge problem for governments. A number of countries right now are going through presidential campaigns. Nuria mentioned deepfakes. That's huge, right? I don't want to see my face in a video saying things that I didn't say. That's huge. We don't know now. We have to be very careful at looking at the sources of information. And it's a mandate for governments, as Nuria was saying, to make sure that we have some sort of regulations where we can not only define the guidelines, but also sanction whoever does not follow the guidelines. Mm-hmm. So these are things that I think technology is great, and it can bring so many benefits to humanity in the medical field, in helping us figure it out, how can we treat cancer, right? To mention an example. Mm-hmm. But it is also true that I heard a podcast about AI. I've heard and read things about AI, as most of you have. And one of the things that I heard is that it is as if humanity were to get a signal from an alien saying, we're going to invade you in 20 years. And there's absolutely nothing we can do to stop aliens from coming, right? It's the same thing with AI. Yeah. So what can we do? We must get prepared for that invasion. Right. And hopefully they come with a peaceful mindset and wanting to coexist with us, beautiful humans. Right? But again, never have governments played such an important role in making sure that, in this case, technology is, the goal of technology is to benefit humans, to make sure that services become available for humans in a faster, more efficient way, that we have access to data to make sure that we make smarter decisions. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. No, indeed, that invasion is already here.
Yes.
You probably would agree to that. Every day we deal with our smartphones. We're already dealing with AI. In some cases it's much more nuanced, but it's there already, and we're already using it in more ways than one. But the invasion, what you're talking about, will be bigger than how we are using it now, and we need to prepare for it. I always find it interesting, and you probably see it too, when you open some websites and you have to click something to prove that you are human, right? Please click this to prove that you are human. And it's very interesting that now computers are checking whether the users are actually human or something else. And that's the life that we're going to be living more and more as well. EJ, how do you think governments and public institutions will be able to manage many of these emerging technologies?
Let me apologize, Paula. I mean, I slightly disagree. I don't think that that AI is going to get to the point where all of a sudden they're smarter than us and human beings become the batteries for them, as we saw in the Matrix. AI, what it does, it calculates through things far faster than most humans can. And they're going to get better at that. And I mean, it's kind of like a brute force computation. It can make a recommendation based on your likes and your dislikes. If you ask it to book a travel thing for you, it can write an essay, as we all know, pretty quickly. What it can't do is yesterday someone came to me and said, hey, you should try that yogurt over there. And that yogurt has these seeds in it, and it tastes mango, and it tastes very great, and this is the reason why you could do that, why you should try it. AI isn't going to get to that anytime soon. And I know it could come and say, based on what you ate yesterday, you probably should do that. But it doesn't have that feeling and that connection. It doesn't go out there and say, wow, it's a really warm day today, and it gave me goosebumps because I remember this as a child, or the weather is changing. It doesn't get to that. It's going to be a tool. It's always going to be a tool. But there are issues with it. And there are going to be issues with it because the data, particularly now around the data that it's trained on, because a lot of people will become dependent on it, and it becomes the black box problem where people use it and they go, the AI gave me this answer, so it must be right. And I think that's where governments have to come in and train people that you can't just develop it where people start to believe that whatever comes out of it is correct, that there are warning signs on it. And you're starting to see that now, particularly when you use ChatGPT. It says at the bottom, ChatGPT can be wrong. I think we now start to work with the developers to ensure that they use curated data, quality data, but also that the end user understands that everything coming out of this isn't always correct. And as I said, I think during our conversation, if you're going to train AI on Twitter data, X data, which is full with lots of toxic stuff, I think the government should say, Grok, which is the AI that they're using from X, is made for entertainment purposes only. Because there's too much misinformation in part of the training data. So you know that when you use it, it's for entertainment purpose versus something that you'd be using for academic purposes. And that's the part of the government's role, to ensure that you put those guardrails in, you recognize what's in the public good, because government's first and probably highest priority is to be there for the public good and to ensure that the tools that the public's using is in their best interest and that they know what's for entertainment purposes. I think the same thing we talked yesterday. When you buy cigarettes, it has a warning on it. Government doesn't stop you from using it, but it says this can kill. And I think government should do the same thing with technology. When you use it, it says this could possibly be wrong. This one over here, we have a lot of confidence in that is correct. But getting back, I want to say, I don't want anybody to fear that all of a sudden we're going to be in the matrix and human beings are going to be regulated to providing the energy. I know that there's some people out there with the ambition and they believe that they can achieve that. For what I know a little bit about AI, I think we're far, far away from that, even if, and I don't even know if we can get there in our lifetime, because how it's made and the data it's designed on. And human beings are uniquely able to connect dots. We wake up this morning and go, I don't know, man, this is too early. I don't know if it's too early for me to get up and get ready for this conference, but maybe I need to because I want to be there in time. AI doesn't do that, and it will tell me, hey, time for you to get up, but it doesn't get there. Maybe I need to go for a stretch and these things are uniquely human, and that's what make us far superior than the technology that we're using. That's my view on it.
Thank you. And I think this goes to show how many different perspectives are with regard to AI and the impact on humanity, basically in the way we live our lives. But EJ, you mentioned a very important aspect of digital transformation, which is data, and the way we govern data. In many countries, we are always aspiring for a highly advanced digital society. And I was telling colleagues in EGA that in many countries that we work with, Estonia is sort of an aspiration in terms of an advanced digital society. But we also know that without very robust digital data framework and interoperability, there'll be ways to go in terms of getting there. In your respective countries, how do you deal with advancing not only data literacy, but also advancing the awareness and the importance of data and data governance as part of digital transformation?
I should start, probably. Yeah. We use, well, as I said before, we actively use our deputy or CEOs, as you say. We use the deputy ministers for digitalization, for promoting data skills to public servants. This is the first thing. But of course, the role of our ministry as the Ministry of Digital Development in Kyrgyzstan is very big, and we are using the coordination among all public agencies. But at the same time, this is the public agencies' role, but at the same time, citizens already themselves, they are already the tools for promoting digitalization to the public agencies. And at the moment, our citizens, they are very active, and they say, for example, they come to the public agencies and say, we are already in the sphere of digitalization. Where are the public services in digital form? So, and therefore, already citizens promote digitalization to the public agencies. At the same time, we are making good progress. Starting from 2018, where there were no, so to say, interoperability system. At the moment, about 400 information systems are, so to say, talking to each other in the interoperable way. And about 1 billion of transactions are made between different information systems. And, but not only with the state or public agencies, but also with businesses. And therefore, I want to make one point, if you allow me, about making not only about digital skills, but also about digital economy. Because yes, public service, making digital public services is very good, and this is most and foremost what is needed. But also, we shouldn't forget about digital economy. And this is what we have made in Kyrgyzstan. Well, of course, all of you know what is fiscalization. This is digitalization of tax services. Thanks to digitalization of tax administration, we were able to grow our Republican budget, to raise our Republican budget by 2.5 times. It means that more taxes are gathered and more taxes are spread out back to the people. This is also a very good example of digitalization use. So, and therefore, every time, every month by month, people using this tool of digitalization, not only in public services, but also in the digital economy. And this brings people also benefit.
Thank you. That's very important in terms of advancing digital economy.
Exactly.
Oh, indeed. EJ, in Turks and Caicos, can you share us more about the data governance framework?
Well, we haven't started around the data governance framework, but we should, and we're on our way there, because data has become very important. And you have to, as a government, understand what companies, particularly companies that are using the technology to the public, you know, and again, and I'm separating between entertainment purposes and the things that are for the public good that the public will go out and use to ensure that their data is correct. I mean, there's a story just 2 months ago. I was the Minister of Finance, and I was preparing for the budget, and I uploaded our table into ChatGPT, and I asked it to give me some analysis on it, and it came back and gave me the analysis. And then I noticed that it was referencing a line item that I didn't have in the table. So it's got to be wrong. So I go back into it and I said, can you do the analysis on the table again? It came back with another set of data. I'm thinking, this is now really going off the rails. And I like, where did you get this data from? And then apologized and gave me something else, made a mistake again, apologized again. And then I realized it was using its training data, was using tables from the Cayman government instead of the Turks and Caicos. And it was very difficult, and I couldn't get it to focus on the table that I was giving it. Leave Cayman's data alone, your training data alone, focus on this table. And so the government's role is for things like this to understand that and put those guardrails in to say, if you're going to be dealing with the public, if you're going to be dealing within a particular country, your data needs to be at this certain quality. And you can't just be giving it, because what's going to happen is that if I didn't notice that there was a row that was wrong, it was referencing something that I didn't put into the budget, I would have gone into the budget debate and spoke to something that had something to do with another country, and everyone would be looking at me confused, like, what is this person talking about? But, and so the government's role, again, is to ensure that anyone is doing anything for the public, that they're using high quality data, and that data is specific to the areas that people would be interacting with, that you wouldn't having cross-referencing and getting these, having these issues. And AI now, they're talking about things like hallucinations and stuff. That's where the AI is making up information. I think it's less making it up, but basically getting information cross-referenced. But, and I think in terms of data governance, the government should lead the way in ensuring that their data is as high quality as possible, and setting those standards for the private sector to say that you can't put something into the public domain outside of for entertainment purposes that the quality isn't up to a certain level. Because then people are going to start reproducing false information. And then I think that's what data governance needs to be and where governments need to focus on.
Thank you. Do you agree, Paula?
Absolutely. In England, they say rubbish in, rubbish out. We have to make sure that the quality we're using, the data that we use has been verified and it's of good quality. My president says a lot, data kills the myth. That's the other thing. We have to make sure that we talked about communication,
right,
that we communicate with citizens, why we're doing this. But very important, and I learned this during this trip to Estonia, the Estonia government is using technology to have a more direct communication with citizens. We're not doing that in Costa Rica. It's important for us to make sure to understand firsthand what are the citizens' wants, needs, what can we do to attend those needs from the government, the executive branch, if you will. How can we bring better services? What sort of quality of services, or what is the evaluation they're giving to the services we're providing them, but also from a parliament point of view, what bills they should be focusing on that takes care of the citizens' needs. And data is all in this, interacting with all these actions.
Thank you. And you mentioned the case of Estonia. And what I have observed also is that in many countries with highly advanced digital public services, is that catering to individual needs and behavior of the public is centric, to the way that digital services and business processes are actually developed. But it's a complex process. Now, if you have a population of 1 million people, that 1 million people may have very different ways of behaving around technology and the expectations around what the government or public services may want out of digital technology. And that's a very good segue to my next question. EJ, maybe you can jump into this question about how do you see these complex dynamics between the state institutions, the private sector, looking at the civil society and the general public, how in advancing digital transformation, because there's so many different expectations and agenda around it. What do you think would be important characteristics of leaders across the board? No, we're not only talking about senior leadership, like ministers like yourself, but also ministers at different levels of the organization across all sectors. What roles and characteristics should they play to manage these different expectations and balance different agenda interests around it to make sure that there's a national vision that everybody is linked with or find themselves in and own as well?
Thank you. First, I want to say that countries, and I feel out of my place saying this because I'm in Estonia that leads in terms of technology. But I think countries shouldn't approach technology from a point of fear of missing out. I think they should understand what they want to achieve and then build a vision around that. This is where we want to get to. So for me, as a former minister and deputy leader of the country, I want us to move to 24/7 government. In Estonia, that's taken for granted. In the Turks and Caicos, it's not, because your interaction with government is usually in person, having to file something over a desk to another human being. It starts at 10 a.m. in the morning, it ends at 4 p.m. in the afternoon. And on a Friday, the lines are long at the government offices because everyone's trying to get their stuff done before the end of the week. So for me, the vision is 24/7 government, moving to that, and then using all of the tools to achieve that. So I think first and foremost, the leaders need to know where they want to get to versus saying, I want AI because everyone else is having it. What it is that you want the AI to use. But in terms of the other thing is that you have to be what I would call the physical embodiment of the vision. You have to represent the vision. And I'll give you an example. When our government came into power in February 2021, we didn't have anyone with any medical background. And so the leader said to me, I'm going to make you the Minister of Health in the middle of COVID. And at the time, the ministers of health who were doctors were resigning. And a friend of mine called me up and he said, whatever you do, don't resign. I knew nothing about medicine. And then the goal was to get vaccinations up, get COVID numbers down, and get people home by curfew. And it worked. I was able to get the 400 cases of active COVID cases down to 0, and we were able to get the 28 positivity rate down. And why did it happen? Because I became the physical embodiment of you better get your vaccine. Whether you liked it or not, you better wear your mask, even though I was probably being the worst person at it. But I had to become the physical embodiment of that. And I've got a lot of nasty emails and everything, but to drive that vision. It's the same thing with technology. The leaders need to represent. If you're going to be pushing AI chatbots, if you're going to be pushing curated data, every time you walk into the room, people shouldn't go, I know already, I know. We have to have our data curated because you need to push it and you need to lead from the front. And so I would say to all the leaders is that with anything, but since we're talking about technology, is that lead from the front, know what the way you want to get to, and be prepared to drag people along, but also be prepared to incentivize people to come along, make it as easy as possible for them to be able to come along, remove all of the excuses, remove all of the friction, but also be prepared to put them on your back and carry them. But you have to be the face of that vision. And you can't just leave it. And I know a lot of visions fail because people put it out there, but no one becomes the face of it. You have to identify that one or two persons to say, you're going to represent it, your career is going to be made or break on this, and go out there and push it.
Oh, thank you. And that's a very powerful statement. Be there and lead the journey and have everybody around you along that journey as well. Thank you. Nuria, what do you think?
I think that in digitalization, you have to be not so visionary, but more persistent, because you have to crawl. Sometimes you are not running, sometimes you are crawling, and you still have to crawl, and you have to envisage, of course, the goal, and you have to go there to the digitalization tools, but also to the digitalization goal. Sometimes the victory is not the straightforward path. It's always the curve, and the curve can go like very high, and then it goes very down. So I think that we are talking about leadership, right? The leader should understand that these curves can be different. So in digitalization, exactly, when you are talking and you're battling with different mindsets, you have to be very persistent, and not only with, so to say, different people, but also with your team, because sometimes people think that this is only the right way, and you have to persuade them that this is quite another thing. And this is what we are doing. And I think that everybody who is sitting here can say the same thing. You are also dealing with digitalization failures. Digitalization cannot be the victory in all the time. It is always these curves, this very interesting paths. But the major point is that we are going and we are coming slowly to the understanding that this is actually a very good tool to fight corruption and to good results in digital economy and to digital public services.
I like the analogy to crawling, because indeed in many ways or in different sectors, the pace can be very slow, just like you're really crawling, but then at some point you'll be leapfrogging, once you have the basics right. Paula, any thoughts on this?
Definitely persistence. Know what your customer wants. At the end of the day, everything we do should be for our stakeholders, which are the citizens. Learn from what other, I'm going to say, companies have done it. I think government should think more from a private sector's point of view. They're very efficient. They look at, again, what the customer wants and think towards that objective. That's how we should do it. Learn from other leaders, how other countries are doing it too. We don't have to invent the wheel, other countries are doing it. Tropicalize it to your country's reality. But those, I think, and again, you're gonna have resistance from other leaders, other politicians, citizens, as Nuria was saying, persistence, willingness. You know, nobody said this was going to be an easy job. And they said, the higher you climb up the ladder, the lonelier you're going to be. So know that from the beginning. Right. This is not an easy job, but it has a very good, if you do it right, it has great benefits for, in this case, your citizens.
No, indeed. And digital transformation, to a large extent, is really about change management. You know? So understanding the political economy around it, you know, who would be the movers together with you, who would be the champions, but at the same time, who would be resisting this change is really very important to be able to have a good grasp in terms of how we can have persistent approach, you know, to digital journeys. One final question, if I may, because we only have a few minutes left. Very briefly, may I ask each of you to give one piece of positive advice, especially to all other leaders present in this room, in terms of your experiences, advice to them in advancing digital transformation. Very short. Anyone who wants to start?
I thought it was starting from this end of the room first.
Okay.
Don't give up, I would say.
Okay, don't give up.
Yeah.
Thank you. EJ? Nuria?
I was letting the ladies go first.
Okay.
I would, when I talked about the crawling, I was thinking about a very good phrase, and correct me if I'm wrong, this is Martin Luther King. You have to run to your goal. If you do not run, then you have to walk. If you are not walking, just crawl, but do something. So do something in the digitalization.
Thank you, Nuria. So, don't give up, do something. EJ?
My advice, positive advice, would be that for government to always know why you're there. You're there for the people, to do what's in the best interest of the people. Don't do what's best interest of the customer or the vendor. Make sure that it's for the public good, and that you always make today better than yesterday and tomorrow better than today for your citizens. That's why you're there. You're there for a short period of time. Put the people first. The technology that you're rolling out, even someone like me would want to be on the cutting edge. I love technology, but I have to remind myself what I'm there for is for the public good, and the decisions that I make have to be in their best interest.
Thank you. So don't give up, do something, do it for the people. On that note, I would like to ask you all to please thank our panelists, Nuria, Paula, and EJ, for this conversation. I wish we could continue, but there's a lot more that we can discuss on the sidelines of this session. Thank you very much for joining us.